Hello everyone, welcome to the second live stream event of this run of Caring for Vulnerable Children. So a warm welcome to both those of you joining us live in real time and also people who are watching the recording after the fact. I know probably more of you access it in that way than join in real time. But regardless, welcome and thanks for joining us. I will introduce myself again. My name's Graeme McPhee. I'm the lead educator on the Care for Vulnerable Children programme, and I'm based here at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, although I'm guessing that most of you know that already. If you're with us in week 4 of the programme, you will know who I am. If you joined us for the live stream event 2 weeks ago at the end of week 2, you'll have a sense of the format of how I can propose to spend the next 40 minutes or so. I've got a copy of kind of various posts and questions that have been posted on the course page, the course site, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going to respond to various points there. I think it's always useful to start these sessions with bit of almost a disclaimer in a sense, but kind of encouraging the conversation to keep going. I'm going to respond to questions, I'm going to respond to issues and points that are made, and for a lot of these issues I've got my own particular kind of take on things, especially kind of some of the subjects that we've been speaking about over the last kind of couple of weeks. I don't expect everybody to agree with everything that I say, and you'll see from the discussions and the comments that have been on the various pages already over the first 4 weeks of the programme that's represented amongst the joiners and learners, participants on the course already. So I would encourage people to on the page where the live stream event link will be posted, to kind of keep the conversation going beyond this session. So if there are things that I'm saying that you want to chip in relation to your view, your thoughts on some of these issues, then please do so, and let's kind of keep that conversation going. So I'd like to start with some questions and comments that have been posted on the live stream page, people posing questions in advance of this session. But actually I want to go back 2 weeks, because I had a really good comment posted 2 weeks ago on the 8th of November, but I never actually saw it until after I'd completed the first live stream event, and I want to go back and pick up on a couple of points that were made there, and that's where I'm going to start. So the post came from Heather Homeyard. So Heather, thank you very much for your post. My apologies for not seeing it in advance of the live stream event 2 weeks ago, but you did say a couple of things that I thought would be kind of a good starting point for our conversation today. And the first part of your post that I want to pick up on is you had posed the question, I wondered about whether other workers in other parts of the world, or even in different parts of Britain, or in people who are in a different area to me, get adequate supervision that takes account of the impact of work and self. And you say that you're a social worker who works in education and your main focus is health and well-being, and you work with teenagers. I think this issue of the support and supervision that we offer to a range of different professionals that are involved in working with vulnerable children and young people is hugely important. And as resources across a whole range of organisations become tighter, then it feels like it's even more an important issue. It feels like we don't need any more research or literature necessarily to tell us how important this issue is, that we already know. And kind of thinking about kind of some of the pieces of literature that have been probably influential for myself in terms of my own thinking about kind of seminal pieces like the core components of care by Henry Mayer, and he identified 7 kind of core elements of the care and task. And his 7th element he titled Care for the Caregivers. And he kind of pretty much made the argument that everything else in terms of the care that young people require, if we don't suitably support and bolster the caregivers, the people offering that care, then they're not going to be in the position to carry out this really demanding, important task. So it becomes almost self-defeating in a sense. We don't offer the care, we don't offer the support that children and young people require, and then we don't achieve what we're setting out to achieve and the outcomes that we would like in terms of those young people's experiences and development. So that notion of caring for the caregivers being absolutely essential. And certainly in my time, both in practice in residential childcare in Scotland, and then since moving to university, in terms of the interactions that I have with practitioners from a range of settings, particularly from residential childcare services, but also from childcare services more generally, including social work, and become aware of or gain information about very differing and very varying practices when it comes to use the phrase adequate supervision. I think at the very least we should be offering adequate supervision, but we should really be offering supervision that is more supportive, developmental, educational. And again, there's lots of literature telling us about what actual professional supervision should entail. And there's more and more accounts of practitioners being asked to work in situations where they're not really getting that level of support and supervision that they require, or when supervision does happen, it tends to be more case focused in terms of kind of what's happening in each case that a social worker might be holding, and that's a really important component of supervision. But then it misses the more support of care and educational bit, the bits that workers need to allow them to keep functioning, to develop, to learn, and also just to kind of cope and absorb with some of the kind of challenges that working with damaged and traumatised children and young people can present to carers themselves. And certainly in relation to kind of some of the figures that exist in the UK about issues of burnout and a number of professions sometimes struggling to hold on to qualified professionals, and social work is by no means the only profession that faces this challenge in different parts of the education system and social care more generally, in terms of how these sectors kind of look after their workers and support and supervising them in a way that allows them to feel able to kind of stay in the job. And again, sitting at a university where we are part of the system whereby we educate and qualify social workers, be that on a 4-year undergraduate programme or a 2-year postgraduate programme. It really strikes me as being kind of self-defeating to put all that investment into that education and professional training of professionals if we're not then going to adequately support, supervise and develop them when they're in the workplace, and then we see some leaving the sector far quicker than we would like to. So I think this is a kind of really important issue right across the whole childcare sector in terms of this task of how we suitably support, supervise and enhance, develop and hold on to workers and encourage them to stay in their roles, stay in their organisations and keep carrying out these tasks. Heather, there was another part of your post that was I wanted to respond to as well. You said, I also wondered about vulnerability in children around phones and social media and what impact people thought this had on young people's mental health. Well, I mean, the issue of kind of mental health, especially kind of amongst the kind of looked after population, is one that we are paying increasing attention to, and sadly we're paying increasing attention to it because I think there's increasing awareness of the size and scale of the issue that certainly in the UK that we face in relation to this. And social media and phones are I guess in many ways can be viewed as a kind of a double-edged sword in terms of all the benefits and accessibility that the development of technology has allowed us in terms of kind of what we can, many people now routinely kind of carry about in their pockets, and the things that enables us to do and the connections that we can have. But equally, we don't have to look far to see some of the challenges and downsides that can exist in relation to this. And kind of the one popular, or kind of one topic that I hear kind of lots of discussion about would be round about kind of issues around about kind of cyberbullying and such thing, and often there'll be chat about before we had technology such as this, obviously, if we say bullying, for instance, take that as a theme, bullying has always existed and sadly will always exist. But there was perhaps a notion that sometimes the victims were more able to kind of leave that at school or leave that in whatever setting because it didn't necessarily follow them into their home. But when young people are regularly inhabiting online environments, social media, etc., then it can be more pervasive in terms of kind of following young people about, and them never getting a break from that. So in that sense, that the potential negative impact of kind of social media technology on young people's mental health. But equally, I said, no, it's a kind of double-edged sword. There can be lots of really positive connections and developments that young people can use social media for, and you know, the way that a lot of our media and newsprint works, so often kind of the more negative stories kind of often make better headlines in some instances, and sell more newspapers or get more clicks or whatever it is that they're after. But there are lots of instances of social media and other online developments being used in more positive and supportive and developmental ways as well, in terms of kind of thinking about kind of different interest groups and different pages or sites that can develop for people of kind of common interests, common experiences, and kind of bringing people together who perhaps ordinarily wouldn't have been able to kind of interact and support and learn from each other, and some of the positive developments that can come from that. And in a sense, actually, this programme, the whole Future Learn site and the way that we do courses such as this is one but example of this, because if we think about this course and how many different joiners we've had from a range of different countries and a range of different settings, so all these people who ordinarily would not be able to make contact with each other, and you're all here, you're all part of this programme, you're all learning with each other, kind of from each other. This is a really positive example of technology and social media, social learning, and the different ways in which we can interact with each other. So I think it's important that we hold on to, there can be challenges in relation to the issues that you raise, Heather, about young people and how they engage with technology and potential implications for mental health. But equally, there can be lots of other ways of kind of thinking about this, and actually, I would hope that in relation to how we might respond to that as carers or parents would be the same as how we would respond to a whole range of other issues, whereby we're trying to kind of interact with kind of children and young people and be engaged with them, be in relationship with them, and be communicating about these issues, whether it be online or in real-time interactions. But thanks very much for your post 2 weeks ago, Heather, and I'm glad to have had the chance to respond to that. So I had some other kind of questions posted in advance of this live stream event, so I'd just like to take a chance to respond to some of them. So the first I want to answer to is Rachel McLeod. So Rachel, thanks for your post. You said, how can people working with young vulnerable people fight the encroaching austerity? Sometimes it feels hopeless. And it's definitely a challenge, and austerity is certainly here in the UK is a phrase that's very much been associated with a kind of set of political and financial decisions, kind of dating back to 2010 effectively. I don't want to go off on a political rant here. I probably easily could, and I know that our government has stated that the austerity is over in terms of policy and finance. My suspicion is that a huge number of individuals and organisations would kind of perhaps beg to differ in terms of kind of how they're experiencing funding in relation to services. But kind of putting that aside for a second, what we have unarguably seen is a shrinking of the state in terms of the services that would be routinely funded and made available to communities, to individuals, to families, and to children and young people within that. And that has created a huge number of challenges for those working in the sector either on a paid or a voluntary basis in terms of kind of offering that support. Any number of depressing statistics about things such as increased use of food banks, increased numbers of people being homeless on the street, and even sitting here in Glasgow this week and at the start of this week in the media seen report of somebody freezing to death on the street in Glasgow here on Monday night, and some of the responses that has prompted about I think in terms of GDP we're the 4th or 5th richest country in the world, and yet we've got things like this happening, and kind of what's going on in terms of kind of resource allocation. So Rachel, I think there's I don't think it's an issue that we should be avoiding in terms of the challenge in terms of kind of shrinking resources, in terms of kind of how we continue to try to effectively support and sustain families, individuals and communities. And it perhaps links back to Heather's question, just everything I've been talking about kind of support and supervision. It's related to that in a way, in terms of we kind of workers need to feel that there's a point and a purpose to what they're trying to do and what they're kind of trying to achieve. And I think it's a challenge for all organisations in terms of kind of how we do that. And perhaps I guess every kind of organisations and individuals within them have got to kind of think about what can our realistic targets be in terms of what we can achieve as an organisation. But I think there's possibly a bigger kind of campaigning issue in terms of advocating for the appropriate levels of funding and support for the services that we think communities require. And we're sitting here in the UK, we're in the midst of a general election campaign where we're seeing lots of statements and promises about funding for kind of X, Y and Z, and this is kind of part of our political discussion just now. But I think for lots of us the bigger issue is, will some of these, regardless of what the outcome of the election is, will these promises actually be followed through, and will we actually see anything being delivered? So it's a huge issue for us. But thanks for your comment, thanks for your question, Rachel. Another question here from Sharon Hinley. So Sharon, thanks for posting your question. And I'm guessing that this is in response to one of the items in week 4, and that was Ian Milligan's video of his talk, and talking about kind of issues of risk and resilience and risk averseness. And we touched on some of that in week 1, and it came up again in week 4. And you said, do you think that society's increase in anxiety and depression could be a result of people avoiding taking risks and being safe? Therefore, self-confidence doesn't have a chance to grow, and living a life of purpose or adventure is hindered. And you're going to say that if we live in a world without risk, about kind of how does that help children to grow and develop? And no, absolutely, this is a kind of very real issue for the care system especially, but I would suggest for all parents and all carers thinking about how we bring up children and the different experiences that we expose them to, and how we try to help and promote their growth and development. And some of the things that Ian was talking about in his talk, and some of the other little bits of literature that we pointed you towards, is around about this theme that kind of certainly a feeling within the care system, certainly in the UK, but in other parts of the world also, had become very risk averse. And by that I mean that we were setting up systems of supposedly looking after children that was justified by it's about us keeping them safe, but actually sometimes that notion of keeping them safe was denying them the chance to participate in things that might be seen as more just everyday childhood activities, and actually by holding that back, we were actually kind of holding back their development, and it wasn't so much about keeping them safe. Perhaps a more cynical interpretation is about organisations keeping themselves safe, because if you don't allow certain things to happen, then they limit the chances and the amount of things that could go wrong. And in the care system, the childcare system in Scotland and the UK particularly, this has sometimes been seen to translate into policies round about the games or activities that children can undertake, such as kind of taking them to the beach so they're allowed to go in the water, and kind of daft policies about, and here I'm offering my take on this subject, just the use of the word daft, about kind of nobody's allowed in the sea, or you can only go up to kind of ankle height because we don't have people with sufficient life-saving qualifications if they go in the water any deeper. All sorts of rules and procedures about the use of bicycles, the use of skateboards, even playing games what might be seen as routine as kind of football or other such things, and then that translating into the way in which we allow children to use phones or engage on the internet or not. And this isn't me kind of sitting here advocating, we should just let them do whatever we want. Obviously, I think adults and parents and carers do have a really important role in terms of kind of making sure that young people are encouraged to engage with the internet and social media safely. But sometimes organisations implement policies that actually just shut it off completely and say we're keeping them safe, but actually the way that we're keeping them safe is denying them access to it at all. And that's compounding disadvantage with disadvantage. It's not helping them to manage these mediums safely, in the same way that not allowing young people to go into the water or go on bikes or climb trees or whatever is not helping them to learn anything. And actually you could begin to argue this is an abdication of organisations' responsibilities. It's our responsibility to help children grow and develop and navigate some of these things. And yes, sometimes they'll make poor decisions, sometimes things will go wrong, and our task at that point is to help them pick up the pieces, help them make sense of it, help them learn from it and grow and learn and move on. And that's what part of the kind of carer role is. So this notion of avoiding risks and kind of being safe, again, I should be clear, I'm not advocating just for a free-for-all, that we should be saying that all children should be allowed to do anything, and carers, parents shouldn't be thinking about this, kind of far from it. But nobody ever learns from being denied access to a whole range of experiences. That's part of that whole kind of caring and parenting and parenting tasks. So I think especially within the care system, Sharon, that we need organisations and practitioners that can challenge some of this risk-averse thinking. And also some of the material that we asked you to look at this week was in relation to social pedagogy. And for many people, especially in the residential childcare sector in Scotland, but beyond, beginning to engage with social pedagogy has been a bit of a game changer in relation to some of the ideas around about this notion of risk averseness. Because what social pedagogy talks about is it talks about risk competence, and that reframing of how we think about risk, and it's rather than thinking about risk management, it's about risk competence, and saying our job as parents or carers is to encourage young people to become risk competent, to become competent at engaging in different situations with different elements of risk. And some of this can be as seemingly mundane as the way we allow children to play. I mentioned about climbing trees, but it could be in play parks with their big spiders nests or whatever, and allowing kind of young people to test themselves, to push themselves. And yeah, if they fall, something could go wrong, but it's the role of the parents and the carers to be thinking about, well, what's reasonable at any given time, and giving them encouragement, allowing them to grow, allowing them to develop, allowing them to grow the resilience and to bounce back sometimes when things go wrong. So I would really encourage, if this is something you want to think further about, Sharon, in terms of this and for everybody on the course, in terms of thinking about how this notion of how we manage this, and again, I'm not sitting here saying that we shouldn't be thinking about appropriate risk assessments when they're required. But of course, we shouldn't be making daft decisions and just encouraging young people to do this, that, and the next thing without any thought of the consequence. Kind of far from it. But we should be thinking about kind of what can and should we be reasonably encouraging and allowing them to do, and kind of and that instance of kind of sometimes we've got to let things go wrong. Sometimes we'll got to let young people kind of fail in some way to experience that, to understand it, to begin to navigate and manage things for themselves. That's how we develop risk competence. And so that's something that the care system needs to really kind of think about. So thanks for that question, Sharon. Actually, I'm going back to so I started with the post from Heather Homeyard from 2 weeks ago. Heather, you also had another post in relation to the live stream event this week, and I pulled that one out before I realised I was already responding to your week 2. But so there's something in your week 4 post I'd like to respond to that kind of seems connected to this. And you said so you can't join us in real time just now because you're out in the woods doing your forest school training. And you said, I think there should be giant parks for teenagers with exciting flying foxes, rope swings and big adventure parks where young people can play and take healthy risks. I also think these should be free. And I would absolutely agree with you. And I guess it's interesting, if I reflect back on it's quite a few years ago now, but I think back to when I was a kid growing up in Scotland and what the average play park looked like compared to some of the play parks that exist now for children and young people. Now you've mentioned kind of flying foxes, swings, I mentioned, but kind of spiders, nests, kind of climbing frames that we get. And these are kind of quite routine now. And the way we're allowing children to play and kind of test themselves out. And it's a good example of linking this back to kind of Sharon's comment about risk averseness and keeping people safe, and play parks such as this actually could be seen to encourage children to in a very kind of playful and child-centred ways to become risk competent in certain ways, because when you've got to work out kind of what you can safely manage on the flying fox, what you feel comfortable with in terms of how high you climb in the spider's nest, or how high the different swings go and such like, that as young people become more kind of physically and emotionally confident and push the boundaries, test their boundaries, all within a kind of fairly kind of structured, kind of safe environment, then the ideas behind those sorts of play packs, Heather, are absolutely consistent with some of the ideas that underpin social pedagogy that I mentioned previously. So again, I can really encourage you to engage with kind of some of the literature and ideas associated with social pedagogy, and actually that whole notion of kind of forest school training in terms of kind of using the outdoors as a learning environment, as a learning palette, and encouraging young people to where possible to be there and to be experienced that, and that partly relates back to your comment from 2 weeks ago about kind of thinking about perhaps the over reliance sometimes, or certainly as society has changed and young people's experiences have grown up, certainly in Western society have changed in terms of the dominant role technology can play and the amount of time that young people spend in front of screens or some sort of other, then actually the more stuff round about kind of forest schools training, outdoors play parks, kind of challenging some of the risk averse attitudes that can exist in relation to everyday care experiences, that the more we've got of that, then we've got a chance of kind of giving young people the more rounded kind of sort of childhood experiences and growth and development we would like them to have. So thanks again for that comment, Heather. Right, I'd like to move us on. There's kind of two kind of final topics I'd like us to think about. I'm just going to pause and take a quick drink of water here before I go any further. So the two things I'd like to pick on, one is in relation to the topic of, I guess, love. You heard from Jenny Malloy this week in terms of the interview that I carried out with Jenny as part of this course. I would really encourage everybody, if you get the chance to read or hear more from Jenny, then to do that. She's a fascinating person to chat to and to listen, to talk or read about kind of her experience of growing up within the care system and now reflecting back on that and her role as an advocate for young people in the care system. But she touches on, certainly in the conversation I had with her as part of this programme, and what she talks about elsewhere, she touches on the subject of love. And linking this to this notion of kind of risk averseness within the care system, this is a really interesting, relevant topic in Scotland just now. So we've got the independent care review. So we have an independent care review being carried out in Scotland just now. It's due to report next year, and it's looking at, as the title suggests, it's reviewing our entire kind of childcare system, and it's an independent review. It's focusing on, it had 10 different work streams, but one of those work streams is the topic of love, and that has been fueled by a feeling that our care system had become devoid of love. And love had almost become a bad word in some way, and the reasons behind this are many and complicated over a number of decades in terms of different events, and how that has viewed the care system, how that has caused the care system to be viewed. But a lot of people left feeling very uncomfortable with the fact that we have more and more instances of young people within the care system or care experienced adults reflecting on their experience of the care system and reflecting on a lack of feeling loved, feeling claimed for, feeling to be part of relationships, and this prompting more and more soul searching about, is this what the care system should be about? Should the care system be, because the very notion of the care system is that when we take the decision to remove, and I say we, when the state takes the decision to remove young people from their families because there's perceived risks, dangers, lack of growth, development, normally a kind of combination of these things, surely the notion should be that what we replace that with should be developmentally better, and it should be loving, it should be caring, it should be therapeutic, and it should promote growth and development in relationships in all their shapes and forms. And when we're getting more and more feedback that that's not how young people are experiencing it, and actually when we get into situations whereby thinking about some of the policies that were developed in a whole range of kind of caring situations and institutions, whereby kind of some institutions saying, well, we look after children but we initiate a no-touch policy. This is how we keep them safe. If it's a residential home, if a member of staff was going into the bedroom of a young person, the door's always got to be kind of kept open because we can't trust a one-on-one interaction in a staff room, in a bedroom, and such things as this, and about the kind of thinking about how does this all add up in terms of kind of a care experience for young people, about kind of how they experience this way of being looked after. So you'll have heard Jenny talk. So we've had I think a kind of real big pushback, especially in Scotland, about saying actually love should be at the centre of the care system. Love should be at the centre of the care experience of young people within the care system. And young people within the care system have got the same rights and needs and desire to be loved and to be cared for as all children in society. And we have got to fix the care system to make sure that happens. And that's what this conversation, this piece of work that's going on is about. And this is going to be a really big challenge for the care system, for us as a society, in terms of kind of how we enable practice to shift in a way that does put love back into the care system. But that presents a number of challenges. So I pulled out some comments in relation to this topic. So this week, so Rachel McLeod. So Rachel, thanks for your topic. You said in relation to Jenny's talk, it's so valuable to hear this. I sometimes wonder if things that we do have an impact, so it's important to hear that some things have an impact later down the line. I think that's a really important point. A lot of people work in the care system with children and young people. The things that we're doing, we might not see or experience immediate feedback in terms of the effectiveness or the meaning of that. And that can be one of the kind of challenging and demanding things about working within the sector. But actually hearing somebody like Jenny reflect back on her experience, I think for a lot of people in the work in the system can be quite fortifying in terms of thinking, that's why I do the job. that I do, because I would like the young people that I'm working with to reflect back on their care experience further down the line and kind of feel things such as this. So I think that's a really important point, Rachel. Another comment, a short comment from Marion Hamilton. Marion, thanks for your comment. You said, so much is made of the system's failure. It was heartening to hear of a resounding success. And I guess I've already kind of touched on the fact that no kind of bad news gets clicks, sells newspapers, etc. And that's one of the challenges that the care system faces, certainly in the UK, is that a lot of the time the care system only comes to kind of wider attention when there's a scandal, when something goes wrong, when there's been kind of poor practice, and it results in court cases, investigations, other such things. And obviously we absolutely want to avoid those, but there's also a bit about us celebrating good practice. There's about us celebrating and promoting all the good things that are happening in the care sector. So I think it really is important that these stories get told. So thanks for that comment, Marion. Naomi French. Naomi, thanks for your comment. You said you found it really interesting listening to Jenny about her experience in care. And you said, I understand that the best place for a child is in a loving and caring home. If that's not possible, and I take by that you mean if it's not possible in their birth family, then the children deserve to be with others who love them. And yeah, you're right. And actually, no, if you access any of the material about the independent care review that's going on in Scotland, that's exactly the message that's coming out of the independent care review, that young people have those same rights and same desires and same needs as young people living in any other family situation. And it's our task as the professionals organising and working within the care sector to put our house in order, and so that is what young people experience within the care system. But this is going to be a big challenge for us in terms of kind of moving this forward. But hopefully the momentum that can be created by the independent care review might be a way to kind of taking that forward. But this can come with challenges, and so Gillian Docherty, I pulled out one of your comments, so thanks for posting it. You said, you've used the phrase, I'm really bothered. I think I kind of read that as you're kind of perhaps really challenged by some of the reading you've been doing on the concepts of love, touch and closeness over the last couple of weeks. You say, these are instinctive to me as a parent, but as a professional I feel conditioned that fully embracing such values would be overstepping the mark with children in my care. And probably I've pulled out that comment because I think you kind of hit the nail on the head here in terms of some of the challenges that organisations and those people working within them have. That I think many organisations and workers with them have been conditioned to kind of think about how do we understand professional boundaries and actually this notion of being in a relationship and the use of the word love or demonstrating love, and is this somehow not professional? Is this me taking on a role that I shouldn't be in a care setting? And it's about us thinking about how we help to support and change and challenge practices. And again, I guess I think I would refer back people to, we spoke about social pedagogy this way, but we also some of the literature talks about the notion of kind of child and youth care, the North American tradition of looking after children and young people. And interestingly, both social pedagogy and CYC very much talk about love being at the centre of those systems, and perhaps it's something about the way things have developed in the UK, and again, interestingly, that some of the ways within the UK in which we're thinking about how we challenge and change things is by looking to these different traditions of thinking about child care and child rearing, be it looking to mainland Europe and social pedagogy, or North American child and youth care and how they embrace the concepts of love. So I think that the challenges, the issues that you present in your comment, Gillian, are one which many people are kind of grappling with and thinking about, both on an individual practitioner level, but for organisations. A couple of last comments just before we finish up. Joanna Santos Ptui, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname there correctly, Joanna. You also kind of commented this, and I kind of pulled out your comment, and you said the most important aspect of caring for vulnerable children is that they feel valued and safe, and again, that notion being at the heart of the independent care review, all young people require that. And then as a very last couple of comments, also we're another 2 weeks into Billy's story, and lots of comments been posted there about how Billy's story has developed. I just picked out two in particular. Again, one from Gillian Docherty again. So Gillian, thanks for your comment, and then also one from Stefan Mark Demarby. So again, Stefan, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly there. And I picked out your comments because they were quite reflective of a number of other comments about kind of both saying really delighted to see Billy getting a bit more support, but still some challenges and concerns, particularly around about Billy's mum, her mental health, and this notion again that perhaps the best way to support Billy might be to support the family and support mum. But again, we come back to issues about resources and how accessible that might be. In the live stream event in 2 weeks' time, we'll spend more time talking about Billy's story, and there'll be a couple of activities that we'll be asking you to engage in between then and now, and that'll be much kind of more front and centre in the final live stream event of the course. But that's it. We've filled up the 40 minutes. They always go in quicker than I anticipate. So I'd just like to finish by kind of thanking everybody for all your participation on the course so far in the first 4 weeks, all the comments that you've been posting. Please keep doing that in relation to all the material that's come, and also the material that is still to come. On the page where where this video has been posted, if you get any responses or comments to anything that I've been saying, then please kind of chip in the comments there and can keep the conversation going. We'll be doing the final live stream event in 2 weeks, which will be the end of week 6 as the course comes to an end. But also I'll spend a little bit of time in 2 weeks' time talking more about further opportunities if you would like to kind of study with us further. Here at the University of Strathclyde, we have other online learning offerings, particularly a master's programme in child and youth care studies. You can actually access information from that on one of the pages in week 1 of the course, and so that's something that you can look at already, but I'll talk about that a bit more in the live stream event in 2 weeks' time. And if you've got any questions, particularly about our distance learning child and youth care studies programme, can I post them in the comments, and I'll make a point of responding to them in the event in 2 weeks' time. But again, thanks for your attendance and participation, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks.